Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
How's it going? Sorry,
Doing well.
my
Sorry,
camera.
my mic is moving on its own. All right, there we go.
I know
Perfect.
we're sitting here just working out the kinks. I'm like, okay. You see my
uh,
chopping mall shirt?
oh, awesome. I love it.
I know I had to do it. So, how
Hell
you
yeah.
doing,
Doing well. Doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
dude? Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Um, I'm not gonna go all kiss ass and nerdy on you. We'll go ahead and get into that a little bit later. But everybody, thank you for your time on Trailer Punk Podcast. Today I have John Brennan from Troma, from The Last Drive-In, from just doing incredible music. You can find that on Bandcamp. Um, Check out his podcast with Yuki, the podcast buffet. And currently, right now, Never Finger Bang a Wendango, all shot on video, is currently doing these circuits. Am I right?
Yeah. I got into a nice festival called the Nightmares Film Festival in Columbus, Ohio.
That's awesome.
Horror called it the can of horror. The can, not the soda can, but the
Yeah,
like the can
and film
France.
festival.
Yeah. So not bad, not bad. And then I think Dread Central had it on like their top 40 genre festivals in the world. So it's pretty prestigious, and I did not expect it with the finger banging a Wendigo.
The title alone had me. I was like, that is the most John thing. Tell me about the process. I mean, if you want to go into the details, I don't know if you want to save that for when it comes out, but tell me anything about this movie. I mean, you directed it and music and everything. This is your kind of your baby. So,
Yeah. It was to be honest, it started as a sort of an experiment because I always loved shot on video movies from the 80s and 90s, like Splatter Farm, Video Violence, Cannibal Campout, all these great just camcorder movies, sometimes a little bit higher grade than
sure.
camcorder. But I wanted to see if I could do something on that format, VHS namely. And so we started out just shooting experimental footage and stuff like that. And then we ended up finishing a piece. Unfortunately, a whole tape that we had was corrupted and it was all pixelated and fucked up. So we
Oh,
had, yeah, it was bad. Oh, by the way, sorry if I'm cussing and we're not
no,
allowed.
you're fine. You can cuss. It's there's no limits on this. I've had
uh,
people smoke cigarettes and smoke
okay.
pot and drink on my podcast, so I don't care.
All right, good. So I'm gonna cuss up a storm.
Cuss
It's
it up,
time to
man.
go.
Cuss it up, buddy. So,
So yeah, I ended up being able to take what existing footage we had
yeah.
and finish the story. So I wouldn't shoot a feature. Maybe I will in the future if I'm really looking to punish myself a little bit. But the next thing I might do is on a high eight. So maybe I think my
Wow.
trajectory will be VHS short, high eight feature, and then a mini DV feature. So that's
Ooh,
kind of
yeah.
like the SOV trilogy.
How was
So
it converting it? Because that's a huge. Because I had a DV and converting it to digital was such a pain in the ass.
Um, so the VHS was a little bit difficult. It would be a lot of wobbling and wibbling, and there were so that's when I decided I'm just going to bake it into the movie. I'm not even going to worry about getting a pristine image anymore because it's just going to drive me nuts.
Sure.
So once I decided that, it actually started coming together really nicely because there's some beautiful accidents in the movie where the thing skipped at the right time, or I incorporated some of the glitches to be like the Wendigos fucking with the characters and stuff. So
Perfect. Yeah.
it worked out. Yeah.
That's amazing. Tell me about so you just kind of get, was there a script set aside or was this, let's just fuck around and find out?
It was FAFO. and, but in a way, like, so I had the concept many years ago when I first went to my uncle. My uncle has a nice house out on Long Island that sometimes me and my cousins, his sons, go and we hang out. We just, we went there for like Thanksgiving, not Thanksgiving, New Year's and stuff like that. So we went on a trip one time, and there's this beautiful tree back there, but it's very eerie back there.
Mhm.
It looks like a woman
Oh, wow.
stuck in a tree, and it's actually in the short. I got a nice like still image of the tree, and it looked like a fucking like woman with her arms up, and then her shape, and then there was like a butthole in the or a vagina, whatever you want to do.
Right, right.
And it was there, and I'm sitting there like, whoa. And then my cousin told me this weird story about one time he was out there by himself. It was like, it's on like 2 acres of land or whatever, and a lot of woods surrounding it. And he got freaked out because he thought that he saw like a deer type entity
Right.
in the woods, that he was like, it wasn't a deer, it was like antlers and tall, like 9 feet tall, whatever.
Yeah.
He might have just freaked himself out or whatever. So, but then I started putting those two things together. I was like, there's that tree, there's that Wendigo story, and Never Finger Bang a Wendigo came into existence.
That's so awesome, God.
Not only is it a good title, it's also good advice.
Great stuff.
Don't.
We'll find out when the movie comes out, won't we?
Yeah. So then what we did was I just put together like a loose story idea with my girlfriend, and also my producer, writer, and she also shot this on the VHS, Liz Shack. And we came up with this cool story, and then me and my cousins just fucked around, and my brother, and we made up the whole thing. We sort of improvised a lot, and we got a finished piece. So,
That's
you know.
awesome. Oh my God, I'm so excited. Even the soundtrack is great. Tell me about, because I know in a lot of podcasts you kind of divulge into a lot of, your horror movie stuff, and me, I'm very much musically, this is a very music podcast, but we'll kind of get into all that. Tell me about the soundtrack process of coming up with, because it's very like synth based. It's very, that sort of classic 80s, synthesizer type of. Tell me about that process.
So the way that I started it was, do you know the movie Black Devil Doll from Hell or Tales from the Quad Dead Zone?
Yeah.
I think the guy's name is Chester. I want to say Arthur, but that's not right. Chester something. Rutherford. I don't have my phone. But a great African-American director from the 80s, late 80s, maybe early 90s. He made these 2 movies, Tales from the Quad Dead Zone and Black Devil Doll from Hell. That soundtrack, I really think for Black Devil Doll is awesome. So what I did was I looked for Casio keyboard beats that he either used
Chester
or it sounded like. Yeah,
there you go.
Chester Turner, that's it.
Yeah.
So he did the score himself, so I found those Casio keyboard beats and I built it from there. But then it was only supposed to be like 1 or 2 tracks. The way that I saved the movie was then I wrote 2 songs that were told from the Wendigo's perspective. And they're both in the movie. There's like one in the beginning and one in the end that sums it up and sort of tells the Wendigo side of the story. Like, these men were actually evil. I only nudged them in the direction of evil.
Sure.
So it really helped by delving into the music side of it to finish the piece. So
I love that. I love just the use of that, because even Casios kind of have their own little subgenre, like Casio core, where there's a lot of these artists that will just use, just because it's kind of got that cheesy nostalgia, and just find what you can and just use what you have. Because that's kind of how synthesizers were like in the 70s and 80s when they were using it for soundtracks. Like, dude, I invested this much money into an instrument. I'm going to use the hell out of it for everything that I possibly can. And I love that. And just the use of the Casio. God, that's so awesome.
Yeah, it was super inspiring to me because I used to have one of those as a kid, those like Casio personal keyboards or whatever. And me and my brother used to make fun of each other. We would play the demo beats. It was like, and we would just be like, you're a piece of shit. Like, so when I started on this, it was like sort of bringing back that nostalgia, and it was really inspiring.
Did you grow up in a pretty like creative household? Because me and my brother, we would do a lot of that stuff where we'd have our own little keyboards and instruments. We would act like we were a band, or we would have a radio and act like we had a radio program, which I think then influenced me to do the podcast. Did you kind of have something like that growing up?
Absolutely. My parents, not only did they instill a great love of music immediately. My parents love all kinds of music. They have great taste in music, from 70s soul to even modern stuff. When like, Pantera Walk is one of my dad's favorite songs, so he like is really and so is my mother. They're on top of it. And then movies too, they sort of never filtered out any of that, except for like when there was nude scenes, I'd have to cover my eyes or whatever.
Your eyes.
It was the 80s. That's the way, cover your eyes. You can watch the rest of the movie. Right. But then just like being in that sort of environment where my parents were introducing me to art and things like that, my brother and I would then get things like the Casio or a tape recorder or all sorts of stuff. And like you said, we would pretend to do a radio show, or we would get the camcorder out when we got one in the early 90s, and we would start filming stuff, and that led to me filming with my friends and stuff like that. So that's kind of how it all started, the art bug.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When did you start getting more involved, or like, this is what I really want to do, even with music and film? Did that kind of come together, or was there one that was a little bit more open to you than the other? Because for me, it was like, I did music and I did through like a church band and everything, and I just kind of became a musician from there. But then I got interested in watching films and going, oh, I want to learn more about films. What was kind of your process? Did one come first over the other?
So music was always a hobby. I never planned to do music as a real thing. I always did it as just for fun.
Okay.
And that kind of came way easier because I learned how to play the guitar in 2 stages. One was in 6th grade with bar chords that I learned from a guy who gave me lessons. Then I got a bad grade and my parents took those lessons away. And then, though, I think they felt bad because they saw how much I loved the guitar. A few years later, they got me an acoustic guitar and a book of Beatles songs with the chords in it. So that's when I taught myself open chords. So I knew the bar chords from the teacher and then open chords. And then I just started writing songs. Like Barbecue Maniac was the first song I ever wrote on guitar for myself.
Yeah.
And it's all about the guy from Ain't Nothing But a G Thang. That video, he has the guy, he's like cooking at the cookout with the volleyball on the beach. And then he turns around, he has a gun in his waistband. I was like, who the fuck is that guy? So I wrote a song called Barbecue Maniac about him. So then that sort of stuff was just so easy. I would like write comedy songs for my friends, and then I started doing comedy stand-up and stuff like that, but not really like in a serious way. Movies was what I really wanted to do.
Oh, okay.
For serious. So, but that started with basically my friends and I would make movies on the weekends, and we have like 6 or 7. I think if we put them all together, it's like make at least 2 feature films. It would be like an anthology, you know what I mean? So we made a bunch of shorts and skits and all that, and that was my decision. I said I want to go to film school.
That's
so
awesome. Where did you go, and then kind of how did that process continue? I know you started work with Troma and everything. Tell me about your process of getting into film.
So film school was the first step, and I went to Long Island University. Now, it was a decision that I made without really thinking ahead. I think now if I knew what I knew now, I probably wouldn't have gone there, only because it was like my parents like, okay, we could send you away to school and you could live in a dorm and all that stuff, or you could live at home and commute, and we'll give you our minivan, which they were planning to get rid of. So I was like, a car? I get my own car. So I chose the car. Plus I had a long-term girlfriend at that time. Yep. So I would still be at home with her and all that sort of stuff. The film school at Long Island University, CW Post Campus, was really good in the theory aspects.
Okay.
The film watching, the learning about what it is to be a film, all that stuff. The filmmakers, I took a Kubrick class, an Altman class, a Cassavetes class.
Yep, been there. Yep.
Great. The production side was not that great.
Oh, okay.
So, but luckily I started the first 2 or 3 years was film. We were literally shooting on film. It was like 1999 or whatever, and then the dawn of DV happened.
Yep.
And I had saved up enough money, so I bought myself one of the XL1s, and that just opened up everything because I was able to edit the fucking digital, all that stuff. It was amazing. You didn't have to sit there with a clunky flatbed chopping and So that opened up the world to me. I was able to make shorts and music videos and go nuts. It was like, so that's sort of the dawn of my existence. And then I moved to LA for 10 years. And since I didn't live away from my parents during college, basically my LA time was my college party experience, And then after I got back, that's when I got with Troma, after LA.
And you said you did, sorry, I don't want to jump around too much, but you said you did stand up. Tell me, like, I love stand up and the work of the art of comedy. And tell me about that process, and tell me how that did you kind of go with like a novelty style, like Fly the Conchords or anything like that with music involved?
Yes, that's exactly what I did. And that's why I felt that I didn't want to pursue it any longer, because I was doing pretty well when I was living at college. I played at this one place for years, and I would pack the house, and it was really an amazing time. It was way before social media,
Sure.
but I would play songs like "Vagina," right? A song about vagina. A woman, a song about urinals, pissing at a urinal. You know, a song about being a janitor. A song about barbecue maniacs. A song about hot dogs. So I would make all these songs, and people would come and drink and sing and Irish drinking songs. It was great. But then when I was in LA, I went to like the Comedy Store, the Laugh Factory, and all that stuff. And I felt that I was like the outcast because people were like, this isn't real stand up. This is what, even though I was getting good reactions
Oh
from
yeah,
the
sure.
audiences, and
Mhm.
I felt that people like sort of hated me because like the other comedians hated me because
Right.
it wasn't pure stand up.
Sure.
So I just like sort of abandoned the idea that I was going to do stand up, and I started a band, and we
Mhm.
used to do like band comedy.
Sure.
And that was pretty good for a while.
That
We
is
did
cool.
well.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
And I know it's weird because comedy is a weird thing because especially it's East Coast versus West Coast. West Coast is like, hey, I'm doing stand up and hopefully they'll pick me up for a TV show. While East Coast, I've always liked, the New York style where, a lot of people from Opie and Anthony and Howard Stern kind of were kind of, finding their roots and everything like that. And I can see where a little bit more like New York can involve music wise versus West Coast. Am I kind of stepping out of my bounds there a little bit?
No, I always had in terms of just pure stand up where it's me by myself
Yeah.
and doing a set, I always had more success in a New York crowd than
Yes.
I did with an LA crowd, except when I did the band stuff.
Mm-hmm.
LA was more open and interested in a full band than just me
Wow.
on stage by myself with a guitar. Now, that's not a rule of thumb. I don't think that
Sure.
that's just my experience. It was like a thing where I would go to the Laugh Factory,
Mm-hmm.
do some songs, and beforehand, a guy would be talking to me and like we'd be getting friendly. And afterwards, when I did well, he like wouldn't talk to me because he was pissed that I did good. And I was just like, well, if this is the way that this is, I just don't want to. I'm not really that like interested in being a working stand-up comedian, so it's not that big of a deal if I don't do it. You know what I mean?
Sure. I
So
think you're just trying to like find your place where you're going from one thing to the next, going, okay, where can I kind of spread my wings? Where can I
yeah,
learn a few things here and there? I can totally
yeah,
understand that. That totally makes a lot of sense.
yeah. Or it's like this will be fun. Let's do some stand-up, and then
Sure.
whatever. It was just a good thing to do at the time because it was practice just to get it out in front of audiences and things like that, and
How do
it
you
was
think
just.
that how do you think that like helped you push you further, especially with you get a little bit more camera time with, the last drive-in and everything like that. Do you feel like that was like, okay, I'm getting myself out there, I'm putting my face out there, I'm getting warmed up for the crowd?
Absolutely. So all those experiences helped me build the confidence to later on be able to do things like the Last Drive-In. But there's a step in between the Last Drive-In and the stuff like the stand-up comedy, which it was Troma.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like I did classes with like Upright Citizens Brigade and the
Oh,
People's Improv
really?
Theater. Yeah, just to meet people. But through doing that, I ended up going on stage and getting comfortable in front of a sketch audience and stuff like that. So once all of that was a primer,
Mm-hmm.
when I got to Troma, Lloyd started to use me because I was more comfortable than most people that would go
Sure.
there, and I was able to improv or do what he said, and it just worked.
That's cool. Tell me
Yeah.
about your time with Troma. Tell me kind of where it started and then kind of how it developed and you again started. I mean, you're all like your resume is a lot of Troma.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So when I went to Troma the first time was I think 2013,
Mhm.
and I had just joined Twitter, and I randomly saw Lloyd Kaufman was like, Return to Nukem High Volume 1 is coming, and I was like, holy shit, Lloyd Kaufman, not only is he making movies still,
Yeah.
like there's a new one coming out. So I looked at the trailer, I loved it, and then I said, I'm back in New York, and they're a New York-based company.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
just tweeted him and said, how do I get involved? And
Mhm.
he sent me his assistant's email, and I sent a bunch of YouTube links to the assistant, like
Mhm.
music videos, comedy, whatever. And he had a quick interview with me and was like, we want you to be an editing volunteer, and we want you to edit some of Lloyd's Make Your Own Damn Movie lessons for YouTube. And I was like, this is perfect. This is, you know. And then from the rest, it just sort of ballooned out from there. I met Lloyd, worked with him a bunch of times on the lessons and then other things. Met Matt Mangiarides, who later went on to executive produce the Last Drive-In. Also, Justin Martell, same thing, went on to executive produce the Last Drive. So Troma was responsible for helping me get to the next level of my career, 100%. It was amazing. And it was all, I viewed it as a graduate school for film school.
Yes.
Because my film, like I said, my film school in terms of production wasn't the best.
Mm-hmm.
But through learning at Troma, I really, really learned more than I ever did in film school. And I kind of wish that I had, instead of going to film school, just gone straight to Troma. You know?
Yeah, because I mean, you're learning, like you're kind of like I'm trying to find the right words to say, where you're under the pressure, where you're going, I want to make the best. Because even with school, you're kind of going, I'm still learning. All I got to do is kind of impress my my teacher, or maybe even the kids in class, especially if they're doing a mass viewing. But you want to impress Lloyd. You want to be like, look, I'm kicking ass here. Keep me around. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's like pressure under fire type situation.
And, you know, the thing about Troma was that it wasn't always a lot of pay. Like I did get paid at a certain point to be his assistant, but it wasn't, you know, life-changing money. But the things that were coming to me was skills, networking. I got to go to all kinds of events. I got to meet all sorts of people, some of whom I still work with to this day. So it was an invaluable experience to not just worry about, oh, I want to get paid. No. In that circumstance, it was not exploitation because I was getting value from the other things.
Right.
So
yeah. And then, like, were you still getting involved with music that way? Were you just kind of incorporating things here and there and doing what you can to just kind of fill out your resume?
Well, I was working on for many years this project that I thought was lost. At the same time I was working at Troma, I was planning to release 20 EPs in one day. That was like my goal. So over the years, I was recording all this music just for myself, and my computer crashed, and I thought I lost it all. And it was while I was working at Troma. Yeah. But luckily, many years later, recently, I got this thing. It's over here. It's like you plug in just the hard drive itself, and it rebooted the hard drive, and I got all the tracks off. Now I can't mix and master them, but what I got was the track, so I'm gonna do something with that. But I also did get, while I was at Troma, I got a song in one of Lloyd's movies, The Return to Nukem High Volume 2. Yeah. I used to donate songs to like the promos or instrumental tracks. So, you know, it just was like very helpful to be able to do that stuff as a hobby, but also bring it to the table for Lloyd and the Troma team.
Sure, yeah.
Which then led to The Last Drive-In.
I love that. I love that. Tell me about, kind of walk us through your sort of creative process when you're kind of scoring or putting together a piece. And do you start with melody, mood, story? Tell me about your process.
I use a lot of different techniques, and I have over the years. So say in terms of if somebody says, we need a knockoff or a sound-alike of this song, right? So it's like the one that I did was The Silence of the Lambs. What is it? Goodbye Horses. Mm-hmm. They needed a sound-alike for Goodbye Horses. So what I did was I researched the BPMs of that song. And then I got a drum beat that I felt was sort of similar. And I put a little reverb or whatever, got the echo going. And then that inspired me to get the sound-alike going. I started to mimic the voice, but not the same melody. You know, so that's how I would build out a sound-alike. Start with the BPMs and maybe get a sound or two that sort of sounds similar. But a lot of times when I'm writing songs, I'm just humming to myself and I just go, and even if I don't have the exact lyrics, if I'm just gibberishing it out or whatever, it's like, you know, and then later on I'll fill in the blanks. That really is helpful too. But then of course also you pick up the guitar and you strum along, you write a song. There's a lot of techniques. I just read Jeff Tweedy's book, you know, from Wilco.
Yeah.
He's got some great exercises. I think it's called How to Write One Song.
Let me write that down. I'll have to check that one out.
It's a great book about art and songwriting, and he's got techniques in there about how wordplay can help you come up with stuff. And, you know, even if your first draft is garbage, even if there's just one word in there in your first draft that inspires you to then like rearrange the words or the sentences, or really great, great book.
That's awesome. I checked out, well, I like to listen to audiobooks because it's easier for me when I'm at work. You know, it's like, okay, you know, if I can't spend my time picking up a book and read it, I'll listen to the audiobook at work. And David Byrne's book about music was
Oh, I have that.
incredible.
I gotta read it. I have it in my Kindle or whatever. I gotta get into that.
It's a good one. Tell me about how you came up with the name Bad Techno. I'm so curious about that.
So, you know, it's amazing because most recently a guy hit me up on Instagram and said, I want to buy your handle from you. that's how I know it's valuable. So I came up with it because I wrote a song called Bad Techno in high school. It was one of the comedy songs I was doing live about all of the people that I used to encounter, because I'm not a kind of person who's like, I'm just metal, I'm just this, I'm just that. So I used to go every once in a while to clubs in Manhattan, like the Sound Factory, Exit, the Limelight, and I would just experience this amazing scene back then in the late 90s. But there were stereotypes that I would see at each one. So I wrote a song called Bad Techno about all the different stereotypes that went to these clubs. It was funny, you know. It's like you got the cheerleader girl who does Molly on the weekends, the Guidos who are, you know, very masculine, but then they're
Up collars and everything.
Yeah, but they're definitely closet gay, most of them.
Sure.
You know, like so, and you know, that sort of stuff. The hippies with the dreadlocks and the drag queens, just the whole scene. So I wrote a song about that, and then through doing that song, I just was like, I really like that title, Bad Techno. So I got all the stuff as it came out. Each time a new social media came out, I would get Bad Techno, and then I have badtechno.com. So that's where it grew from.
So cool. That's so cool.
And I was writing a musical at one point.
Really?
Yeah, about all the different people in the club and all that sort of stuff, but it was very crass.
Okay.
I've since moved on from my young,
Sure.
gross out sexual humor. I mean, I still do all that stuff,
Sure.
but it was really brutal back then. I mean, if you listen to some of that stuff, it's like, what were you thinking?
We used to do a lot of jokes like that with school because I was involved with like music classes and stuff. We did music appreciation. I was telling my kids this where they were just like shocked and stunned. We were doing, so in a music appreciation, we had to do a music jingle for a commercial, which we did. Philly cheesesteak pizza. We did a jingle for that, but then the teacher was like, I want you to do a musical and kind of create a song and kind of create a story with it. And we did, as a joke, it was Columbine the musical.
Okay, see?
Yeah, it's tough. But the harder we worked on it, the more it became like a tragedy musical, where even as we were developing it, it was like, holy shit, this is actually working. Because we were doing it from the different perspectives of the kids and the shooters were to go from one to another. And the teacher was like, listen, this is like brutal, but the way you guys crafted this is actually quite brilliant. And it was one of those where she was like, you can get an extra points if you perform it in front of the kid. I was like, I'm not doing that. But it was one of those things where it was an inside joke, but it became something more. And it was like a shock that we actually kind of pulled this off. So again, I was like, how did I even think that was funny in school? But then it was one of those things where it was like, oh, it actually kind of turned out okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. And it can be done. I mean, there's 1,000 movies that have gotten the dark humor. I mean, Happiness is one example where it should not fucking work, but it works somehow. So Columbine the musical, if you took great care to make it work, it might work. You never know. It could be pulled off.
Worked. It was, but again, it was just one of those things where it was a joke, but then it was like, again, we worked on it. We worked on lyrics. We worked on melody. And it was just one of those like, man, I wish I still had it somewhere just to be like, to go back to it and just go, okay, how did we?
Yeah, how do we do this? Maybe I'll revisit Bad Techno. The idea is not bad about all the different people who come together in the club, their lives outside.
Up a little bit, right?
Yeah, I'll polish it up. I'll take out some of the cuss words, maybe have a love story. I don't know. Who knows?
Tell me about in high school, because when I was in high school, we had to do a lot of like, there was punk bands. See, ours was punk bands were handing out demos, and I was doing a lot of electronic music where I was going, taking things from like Nine Inch Nails, I'm trying to think of the Prodigy, stuff like that. And I was kind of handing them out, and people are going, this sounds more like video game music. Tell me about your process. Were you kind of going, here's my music, check me out? Were you trying to kind of network, or was this just more of like a personal thing that you were trying to do for yourself?
It was a little bit of both. A lot of times that I would record stuff would be on those little, I have one around here, those little cassette tape recorders. And I would just make tapes like that. And then my parents, again, another beautiful gift they gave me was one of those old Tascam 4-track recorders. So I was able to then layer it. So the first thing that I did with that is I made Bad Techno, the album.
Yeah.
And that I did dub, and I didn't make people pay. I just handed it out to a lot of people. And actually, I lost my own copy. And many years later, a friend of mine, Matt, was like, I found this. You want this? Because I know that you lost. And I was like, oh my God, I have Bad Techno back. So that was like sort of my thing about, sending it around. But then once the internet came out, I just was putting it up on YouTube, on everywhere I could. Not the internet. You know what I mean?
Right. I know
like places where we could feature our music. Like my first website, I had 5 or 6 tracks up there before even social media was a thing. Just like, this song, that song, that song. And then, once YouTube, then Bandcamp, and then now I'm all over the extra stuff through like DistroKid and things like that. So, but I never really sold music until The Last Drive. And that's when I started to sell because there was a built-in audience and it made sense.
Sure, yeah. And what artist would surprise your fans the most that you were influenced by?
Debbie Gibson.
It's a big question, I know.
Debbie Gibson. I mean, I think Debbie Gibson. That's awesome. I loved it. I think she's a brilliant songwriter. Like Only in My Dreams is one of my favorite songs of the 80s. Or Madonna, say, like I fucking love Madonna. I think she's a great songwriter. Like the top things that I think of my influences are Ween, Frank Zappa, the Beatles, the Wu-Tang Clan, Iron Maiden, Stevie Wonder, Debbie Gibson, and Madonna, and Fish too, because I've seen Fish.
Oh, you know what? Not a lot of Fish fans out there. I think I knew that. I think I followed you on Twitter or X, and you posted a lot of stuff about Fish. And around the time they were in St. Louis, and they did the Blues just won the Stanley Cup, and they came out and did Gloria.
Oh, awesome.
And they had like an inflatable Stanley Cup, and I was at work, but I was following it on their I have Fish Live, like where you can stream their and I was following it, like everybody was listening to the game. I was watching Fish as like it was one of those mind-blowing moments where I was just like, everything would just came in so beautifully. It was so cool. But that's so cool that you're a Fish fan. I am too.
I've seen them since 1997 when I went to my first show, Sight Unseen. I didn't even know the band really well. 1997, New Year's run. I went to 3 shows in a row because my friend Alex Johnson was like, I'm going to 3. You want to come to 3? I said, I got nothing better to do. Let's go. Let's party. And it was awesome. And since then, I've seen them at least every other year or whatever. But I'm probably at 100. I lost count.
Which one was your favorite? Which one stood out the most to you where it was going, this one just blew my fucking mind?
I mean, there's been many that have blown my mind. The top ones was obviously the first run. They did this thing called Harpua, which, okay, so you know what Harpua is. People may not know, but it's this thing where they do a special song and it leads into a story, and then they do some sort of like gimmick or gag and then go back into the show. So the one that I saw was they did this whole story about how when the character was a little boy, he would get things into his mind from TV and all this stuff, and it led to their songwriter Tom Marshall, I believe his name is, something like that. He came out on stage and they did the song 500 Miles by the Proclaimers, and then ended Harpoo and went back into the show. That to me was like, that's what this band does. Holy shit, I'm in. Like, this is it. So that was the big one. And then I went to other shows like Coventry Not Coventry. That was a horror. That was supposed to be their last show. That
Yeah,
sucked.
yeah.
No offense, but that was terrible. I could tell you stories about that. No, it was in the same place that they do what's that big festival they do? God damn it. Indio,
Honolulu?
California. No.
Coachella.
Coachella. It
Coachella.
was in the same place they did Coachella. It was a Halloween show, and they
Oh,
did Exile on Main Street, the whole
yes,
record.
Yes, yes.
That's one of my favorite records, Exile on Main Street. And they did the whole thing. I was dressed like an old woman with like a walker and everything. Everybody in the crowd was dressed, and we had a party. That was amazing.
Let me hold on. The one that blew my mind the most was, I have it up. They did the entire.
Oh yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool. I wish I was there.
So brilliant, dude. That was like.
Yeah, they do so much stuff like that. I mean, there's just so many times that I've been like, I'm so. Well, actually, here we go. This was amazing, and this wasn't particularly about the band. It was just about being there in the moment, and the reason why I convinced myself to like meet someone like Lloyd Kaufman as I was on mushrooms at a Fish show, and I said, this is the year I need to meet somebody who can help me move my career along.
Sure, yeah.
And I like made that promise to myself in my head, and it turned out that Lloyd Kaufman was the one.
That's so cool, man. I love how things just come together like that, dude. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Who was the most like who did you work with or who did you meet that was like one of the most mind-blowing moments? You know, it could be in your career, it could be anything like that. Who, like, just working with them was probably one of the most mind-blowing moments you ever had?
Well, I was actually speaking to my girlfriend, Liz Shack, who was also, like I said, my producer, my beloved, all the things. We were talking earlier, and the biggest surprise to me was Tom Savini.
Yeah.
He was so fucking cool. He was so nice.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, before that, I had heard a story or two about how he was not very nice at conventions and stuff.
Yes, I ran into him a few times where he was, but it's hard because you get a lot of people coming up and he doesn't seem like the most. So I understand, because I had a convention story, but you go ahead. But it was just one of those things where he was just kind of like trying to feel people out, I guess, that type of situation.
Yeah.
But
when I met him, I was like, I was the one who had to pick him up from the airport and everything, and I went and I picked him up, and I was prepared for the worst, but he turned out to be the fucking coolest dude. Not only was he really cool, we got along. He started just sharing stories without me even asking, because I was like a fan, and it was a great weekend. I spent 2 days with him because of the last drive-in. And he even called me like by one night because there was like some sort of a fire drill or something at his hotel, and he's like, John, I didn't know else to call, and I stayed on the phone with him for like an hour and a half, just like, if you need me to come by, I'll help you. We just talked, and he was such a nice dude. It was amazing. So I'm never since then have listened to people's opinions of others, especially like public personas, because he might have just had a bad day. They maybe did something that they didn't reveal why he was a prick to them. And, you know, there's so many reasons why we could be pieces of shit to others. And so that to me was like the greatest experience.
That's got to be amazing. Because we had a convention. I'm out here in St. Louis. So we had one, and we rarely have them out here. But this one was the 40th anniversary of Night of the Living Dead. And everybody was supposed to be there. Pretty much everybody that was alive that was in the cast. George Romero was supposed to be here, but I think it was something got mixed up with his filming. He was working on something, and so the timing wasn't right. So I wanted to meet him and actually have him sign something, but he didn't show up, which is fine. But one of the most surreal moments was meeting John Russo, because John Russo had his own school going on, the John Russo, is it movie business school? That I was working on going to, but you know, with time and money and just that, you know, trying to get out from St. Louis all the way to where he's at, where the school was at, was kind of an issue. But when I was talking with him, he remembered me, because apparently he remembered my resume, he remembered my portfolio that I sent him and stuff like that. So it was one of those, he's like, weren't you supposed to be at my school? And I was like, holy shit. Like, I was like blown away that he even remembered me. But it was one of those things I was so cool to experience everybody in that convention center. That was wild.
That's awesome. I love that. The John Russo, Lloyd and I did a bit for his movie My Uncle John is a Zombie.
Yes.
So I'm the Toxic Avenger in that movie. So, yeah, it was very cool. We did like a song, beat 'em, burn 'em, shoot 'em in the head, beat 'em. I don't remember what it was for, if they wrote it or if Lloyd wrote it, but apparently it's in the movie.
That's so cool. That's so neat. He's such a great guy too. Like he was so nice to talk with, and even just like he'll call you. Like he called me just on my cell phone. Hey, just want to know if you're still interested in coming to the school. It was just one of those like odd moments where I was like, oh my god, like Night of the Living Dead was one of those movies that I grew up watching. It was just so influenced by, and it was just everybody was just so cool that night. It was so neat, man.
That's amazing.
Cool. Tell me about hopping board for the last drive-in. How did they call you? How did they get a hold of you? Was it through Troma and everything? And tell me about the process of all that.
Yeah, it was. Troma is to I won't say blame, but Troma is the reason why I knew the two executive producers, Justin Martell and Matt Mangiarides. Matt Mangiarides, who's the one who actually got the whole thing, the origin of The Last Drive-In. He knew an executive or met him at a film market or something, and that's how they spawned The Last Drive-In. And I just, because I did the Silence of the Ducks for Return to Nukem High, aka Volume 2, Lloyd likes you to say the full title.
Yes,
Matt knew that I did music, so he hit me up and was like, hey, we're doing The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs, this and that. Why don't you take a stab at a demo? We're going to go out to musicians for demos. And I said, great, I'll throw my name in the mix. Let's go. And so I was super inspired by that because I knew the Monster Vision song and I really liked that song, but they weren't able to use it for some reason. So 24 hours later, I had a demo and it was all about like these Muppets. This was how I pictured it in my mind. These Muppets who were singing in celebration that Joe Bob was back in town. There was like a graveyard in my mind next to a drive-in, and Joe Bob's returning. All the zombies, and they're singing. So I did it. Then they sent it to everybody. Everybody said, this is great. Let's take this. And then I had a conversation with Austin Jennings, the director of The Last Drive-In, and he said, this is a great demo. All you need to do is add maybe a slide guitar or this or that. He gave suggestions about the arrangement. We went into the studio, we did it, and that's history right there. It was the easiest thing that ever happened. I couldn't believe how simple, because usually everything else is a damn struggle. It's like, that's not going to happen. Oh, you got this opportunity, and you're like, oh my God, this would be amazing if it happened. It doesn't happen that way. This one happened, and I couldn't believe it. And it was thanks to all the many years of just doing it for myself, doing the tests, like we mentioned earlier, doing the going on stage, this and that. I was prepared for the moment when it finally came to me. And that was really, any advice that I could give to people is like, do as much as you possibly can, even if in the moment it doesn't seem like it's benefiting you. It is. It's all practice for the big moment.
Yep, 100%. And there you really, I could see your input on the show. Now, I'm not trying to bring any ill will towards it now. And believe me, I have a lot of friends. I mean, I'm very much involved in the mutant, but the lack of you and Yuki has really like been noticeable. And I don't know if you're comfortable with talking about it and everything like that, but the fact that seeing you guys walk away, like I can tell.
Well, I would just want to say real quick, there's no reason why Yuki shouldn't be on the show. Right. And I have no clue why they're not calling him, other than the fact that I'm involved with him, which I think is actually very unfair to Yuki. If that's the reason, if they're using me as an excuse why not to call him, that's garbage. I don't really have much to say other than what I've said, and I still remember fondly all the good times. Like, I'm not going to let that situation bury the creative contributions. That I think that I really had a good time doing a lot of those musical numbers, working with Austin, even certain times working with Joe Bob. There were times when I had a great time. Unfortunately, it didn't end that way. And, but I'm not going to let that be a detriment to remembering the good. Like the Spookies rap was an amazing time to be on that show. even the Clint Howard stuff, like all of that whole first 5 seasons was amazing.
It was
So
incredible. Like the fact that, I'm about to geek out a little bit, where it was coming into it and it became such a crutch for me during COVID. It was one of those times where locked in the house, you're going stir crazy, and it was at the right time, at the right moment, where it was just like this is my zen moment. This is my opium in this sort of weird, depressing thing where it was just at the right time, where the last drive-in, and I actually got to see Joe Bob and Darcy in Kentucky. Is it Kentucky? Kentucky. Kentucky? I'm sorry. I'm no, yeah, so it's Kentucky. It was it was when he was doing his tour, and it was like the last bit of the tour before they did shutdown. And it was one of those things where like I was holding on with dear life with the last drive-in, because it was one of those things, again, it just brought me so much comfort and so much happiness at a time when it was just like everything was just so fucked. You know what I mean?
oh yeah, I felt the same way about the show, even though I was working on the show, because like we all had a conversation. It was like, do we want to do this in the midst of this pandemic or whatever? And we just all decided, yeah, let's do it, because we're not doing anything else. And if we can make some episodes of TV and, get them on the air, let's do it. So we all decided to do it. And then when they were airing, that was like my social life, much like everyone else's, it's like, oh, Friday night, you get the drinks going, you get the pizza going or whatever. And we all party and meet on Twitter. That kept me afloat too. Mm-hmm. Seriously.
Oh, and yeah. And it was one of those great things where it felt like the community really came together. Did you notice like there being like a spike in everybody's viewership and all that around that time?
Well, the first marathon was a sign.
Oh yeah,
that there was a big audience. Like when it crashed the servers, Justin Martell and I were on the set of #Shakespeare's Shitstorm, because we produced that movie together, and we were like, God damn it, we can't like even enjoy, watch this marathon tonight. And we ended up having to be there super late at the production office. And all of a sudden we're getting news. It's crashing. And we were like, and at first, like, we were like, oh, that sucks. And then I was like, no, actually, you know what? That's good. Yeah. That means so many people want to watch this damn thing that they can't. Yeah. So that turned out to be the case, that it was a good thing. Then during COVID, for sure, there was an uptick, because it was like, Friday nights streaming live premiere, and people would just gather and watch. It was awesome.
And it was incredible, and it was great. It really brought the community in, and I think it just ticked up, because even around that time, Joe Bob was on Sam Roberts, the guy, not Sam, or it was on XM Radio, and he was talking about, even he was streaming Cannibal Holocaust. And I remember hearing that interview where Joe Bob was on radio and going, yeah, and when Sam was talking about the time when he was like, we were locked in the house, and before I know it, I'm finding out that Cannibal Holocaust is trending on Twitter. Like, only through the last driving Cannibal Holocaust trend on Twitter.
Yeah, that's so cool. I Cannibal Holocaust is like one of the main movies that scarred me as an adult. I watched it in my 20s. I was sick for a week after. Even and it made me even more sick about reading about how the animal slaughters were real, all the stuff. Mm-hmm. And I vowed to never watch it again. I broke my vow because it was on the last drive, and I was like, I gotta watch this while this is happening. Shit. Oh my God. And actually, I liked it a lot more the second time. I did. I think it's a really interesting movie that has some horrible things associated with it, like the killing of the turtle and all that stuff.
Sure. Tell me about your input on the show. How much? I mean, besides the music and the the music video, everything like that. Like, tell me about what other inputs and contributions you had with the show.
Well, besides just being, the acting that I did, I probably appeared on like over 60 episodes. Oh, yeah. And then I did 50 musical numbers, all that sort of stuff. So that was that. But I was also at a certain point a production manager. So I was doing talent coordination. I was getting the fucking RVs. I was also a major worker behind the scenes, not just in front of the camera. So I was doing the job of four people for one damn salary. Very Troma, let's say.
That's very Troma.
Yeah, but hey, like I said, at a certain point, it was really good because I was having a good time and whatever, and
It's amazing.
whatever.
It's crazy to think Shudder is now at 10 years. Tell me about your thoughts and feelings on Shudder being 10 years old now. And I mean, just you having your fingerprints all over Shudder with The Last Drive-In. Tell me about that.
Uh, I I don't really want to get into because that kind of gets into the minutia of all of the whole thing. Look,
Sure.
I'm glad that they're 10. I think that what they wanted to achieve in the beginning, they are starting to achieve,
Yes.
which is get these interesting horror movies out there, interesting originals, like In a Violent Nature, Late Night with the Devil, Skinamarink. These, I love what's the one where the guy Deadstream. I thought
That's
Deadstream was awesome, awesome.
Yes.
So they're starting to do what they wanted to do in the beginning, which is although they did start strongly with that movie Terrified, which was really good
That was
and
really
scary.
mind blowing for sure.
Yeah. Um, what I think is that they did not plan for. Actually, I know they didn't plan for Joe Bob, and I theorize that they did not want Joe Bob to be the face of their streaming service, and then just because Joe Bob was so successful, they had to incorporate that into the thing. But I think that their planned trajectory or hoped trajectory was to get to this what they are now sooner. That's what I believe. I can only theorize, but they're doing what they wanted to succeed. The cleansing. What's the one? The cleansing hour, the mortuary collection. They do manage to make these interesting originals. So it would be cool if they can continue that, upward trajectory. And other than that, I can't get into much
you're
more
fine.
because
No,
I
you're
would, open up a can of worms. So
I don't want you to do that. No, you're fine. No, you're fine.
I'll write a book one day, I promise.
That's fine. Well, I'm told I'll buy it. I'll be there hoping to get it signed by you. So
Oh yeah, we'll see.
so we just lost Sergio this month or this week. Tell me about what some of your favorite movies by Sergio Salvati.
What?
So Sergio, the guy who worked with Lucio Fulci, he passed away this week. Was there any movies that stand out when it comes to Fulci that that were some of your favorite, like The Beyond or anything?
Like Fulci movies. See, because
Yeah,
what did Sergio Sabrucci do?
he did cinematography.
Oh, okay. See, I'm
All right, no.
sometimes I'm not like up on the additional people, which
No,
I am starting to get into because Letterbox
Mhm.
stats
Yes.
has all. I mean, it lists everybody, the
Yes.
production assistants. So I started to go through that. So now that you mentioned his name, I'll start to look into
You're good.
more of what he's done. But in terms of Fulci movies, I mean, The Beyond, City of the Living Dead, they're all just. Although you know what, I'm going to defend Bob. People hate Bob.
You know what? Thank you. It got better for me. Like I feel bad for Bob because he got so shit on during the last drive-in.
Yeah.
And before I watched it, more I'm like, I kind of feel bad for him. You know what I mean?
You know when I started to come around to Bob, I watched a movie called A Blade in the Dark. He's in it. And I was like, that's fucking Bob. And then that movie's really good, A Blade in the Dark. It's got a great dub job. If you listen to it if you like subtitles, whatever, but if you listen to the dub as well, it's just one of the best dubs I ever heard. So, what else? Zombie. You know who I started to get into is Fabio Frizzi's scores. I now listen to those independent of the movies. I like if I go on a walk or whatever, I throw on some Fabio Frizzi stuff, and that stuff is so awesome.
So good.
So amazing.
I love that's probably my favorite like era and genre is like Giallo, 70s Giallo. Like I did an album during the Christmas break from my job. We around the holidays we'll take a Christmas break, and everything like that. So I finally got to sit down and work on and I was all I watched the entire holiday season was 70s Giallo. And I was so influenced, I decided to create my own little, it's like a soundtrack, but for a movie that hasn't, it's been made in my head type situation.
Yeah, that's cool.
So much fun to do. And I just love, what's your favorite era of horror?
Oh, that's rough because I love everything from the 20s and the 30s, even the 40s. People say that it was like a garbage era for horror. There's great stuff. Val Lewton's in there. The Dead of Night, one of the first amazing anthologies. The 50s got all the sci-fi horror with the nuclear age. The 60s with the starting to bring in the gore and the Herschel Gordon Lewis's and the early Giallos. The 70s with the fucking gritty realism and the disgusting nature of all this. I just watched again Let's Scare Jessica to Death. That is a fucking underrated film. I
Oh,
love that movie. The atmosphere is dripping. That's like a great fall movie. The 80s with the resurgence of like almost like a second Universal classic monster movies, but with Freddy Krueger, you got Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, all that stuff. Chucky. It's like another era of what the monster movies were doing back in the 30s and 40s. The 90s with the Scream revival, even Deep Rising in the 90s. Jesus Christ. The early 2000s, well, let's forget about the early 2000s. And then
I like them. I like them. That was at a time when I needed it the most. It was like kind of my step up, and even just, the Japanese horror was
yeah,
great when they brought it to the US, and
no, I'm just fucking around. I love a lot
it
of
was a good
early
time,
2000s. Yeah.
I was bummed out by Rob Zombie's Halloween. I thought if he could have took it and created his own thing where it was like a monster movie that he could have created and just took the whole Michael Myers thing out of it, I think it would have been gold. But go ahead, continue.
I'm not opposed to Rob Zombie's movies other than the fact
Not
that
his movies, but just the Halloween. I was like, he could have.
Oh no, sorry, Halloween movies. I really like the second one. I don't think that it's as bad as people say. I prefer it to the second two Gordon Green movies, to be honest. And even those movies I still like. I still think that it was awesome that they tried to do something different instead of carbon copies. The reason I didn't like the first Rob Zombie Halloween is that the second half was basically a remake of the original. He should have just shot off into an original direction.
Thank you. That's what.
Yeah. Yeah. Why does it have to be the same thing? It could have the same elements.
Yeah.
But one of the so here's something I heard once about Gus Van Sant's Psycho. And I don't know if this is true or not. Maybe this was just speculation. But everybody was saying before it came out that he was going to do a shot-for-shot remake up until the shower scene. And then at the shower scene was going to be a completely different movie. I think he should have done that. I mean, at least that would have given us something else.
For sure. For sure.
So in that case with Rob Zombie, though, the reason I like his second Halloween over the first one is because it was just him.
Just him. Yeah. He tried to, I think he tried to go, okay, I can't just keep remaking. He adds his own Rob Zombie-ness to it. You know.
And even okay, Halloween Ends.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that concept was fucking brilliant. Is that evil is contagious? Michael Myers is sort of giving this evil to this next generation. I think they should have went further and had the apprentice and master thing be even further than they did. They only had one scene where he sort of teaches him how to kill. That should have been the crux of the whole thing.
For sure. What do you think about modern horror? Where do you think it's going now, and where do you hope to see it?
Oh, I love it. I think I just watched Bring Her Back. I would say Hereditary is modern as a masterpiece. I think there's a lot of great people doing it, and I think there's a lot of great people doing it underground as well. And the fact that there's more access to all of this stuff that is getting more and more accessible to people. I want to see everyone's movie, and even if I don't personally like it, at least we're getting people to do these singular, interesting stories that might hit us.
Yeah.
So,
and I think the ones that shock me the most are just short films on YouTube. I saw this one, I think it's called The Chair, and I've talked about this on a previous podcast, but what it is the guy can't trust his own brain because everything is it just if you watch it, it really flips on its head because you're going, wait, is he really seeing that? Did that really happen? Is he going crazy? And that's probably my biggest fear, is knowing that I can't trust my own brain, and it freaks me out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just like the fact that we're living in a time
Mhm.
when we can access pretty much any movie ever. And even if they're missing, you could somehow find a way to watch them, like Internet Archive or YouTube or whatever. I am so happy I'm alive right now because I could find, like, I just found this movie called Anguish,
Yes.
starring Zelda Rubinstein, and I had heard about it for many years, but I couldn't find it anywhere, and it was only like VHS tapes. But finally, I found it on the Internet Archive, and I watched it, and I'm so mad because I wish I had watched it in a movie theater.
I agree.
It's a movie. That is like the quintessential horror movie for a movie theater.
And I'm
And
a total sucker for Internet Archive. You can find pretty much anything on that thing.
yeah, and I don't feel bad. Like if a company who owns a movie or lost the rights or whatever isn't going to give us access to it at the very least on physical media, we deserve to see it. And I'm not out here like pirating movies or anything.
No,
but if all else fails and I can't find your movie, I'm going to the damn Internet Archive and I'm watching it. And I'll spread the word so the next person will buy it,
Definitely. What movie do you think should have been on the last drive and that wasn't?
Burial Ground. A 100,000% Burial Ground is, I won't say slowly because it's now probably in my top like 5 favorite horror movies of all time. It is such a bizarre movie. It's actually frightening in a way when you really think about some of the things that go on. The acting in that movie is so deranged. And the screenplay and the fact that the zombies are wildly ranging from beautiful looking makeup to Spirit of Halloween or less. The score, the whole thing, the fire burn. In this, you would never get away with this today. There is a scene in Burial Ground where the main actress lights a match and throws it at a zombie, and it goes on fire in the same frame.
Yes.
You can't get away with it. It's a relic, but it's so freaking good. I love Burial Ground, so I wish, because I know that they were thinking about doing it in the first season or second season, and Austin Jennings, the director, had even taken notes, but then Shudder lost the license to show it. Burial Ground would have been the way.
Great.
Honestly.
It would have been great. I was always hoping, my personal favorite's Driller Killer. I love that movie. So punk rock, so New York. And even I guess I don't know, it's kind of flip-flops between public domain and then other people taking it and making something with it. I would have loved to see that on the last drive.
Absolutely. I think that's, it's such a gritty New York movie like Maniac or something. It's such a time capsule. And that would be a really fun episode. Just everybody kind of, all the newbies kind of getting into like, oh my God, anybody who hasn't seen it is like in for a ride.
Would have just been like crazy. What would be your desert island? We can do movies, music, or books. You pick the one.
Well, okay, let's first think, if I were to be stranded on a desert island, which one would give me the most pleasure?
Yeah. That's what I try and do. What would give you most pleasure? What would last longer? And which ones would they be?
Oh, it's so hard because music I could just sing to myself. So let's cut music because I can remember the Debbie Gibson songs. I can remember and I can put on concerts for myself. So let's not music. Books or movies? That's a hard toss up.
Tough one.
God damn. Because movies, you probably would get more bored with faster because they're only a couple of hours each. But with a book, you could read that for a month. You could restudy the sentences. I think books. If I'm really getting into it, books I think I would take. Now, Desert Island books, I really don't know. Shit, I mean, like, books that I love, okay, I would take a mind-bending one like something by Robert Anton Wilson. like something like Prometheus Rising or The Cosmic Trigger, something that would give me years of inner thoughts and experiments and things I could do. The Prometheus Rising has like a workbook in it that you can work from, so I think that would be one. I would take, you know what? I never read the Bible, It
Might
take
as well.
years to read the
Yeah,
damn Bible, you know? I'll read the Bible. Shit,
crack that sucker open. Yeah.
yeah, it'll take me 2-3 years to get through it the first time, and then I wouldn't understand probably 90% of it. So I'll go back and reread that thing. Um, let's see, that's two. How many? Five, three? What?
5. Yeah, that's fine. So
Five. Shit. I would take like one of those crazy anthology, thick anthologies of like the greatest short stories ever. Right. So one of those English class
just a big one they
tomes.
buy like at like Barnes and Noble or Costco's where they got the big.
Yeah.
That's a good.
Let's see what else. Maybe some sort of a survival guide, like the Boy Scout
Okay.
Handbook,
Yeah.
so that I can learn how to make a fire or something.
You know, nobody ever brings that up. That is perfect thing where it's just a survival book. That is brilliant. No
Yeah,
one brought that up. You're the first one.
yeah, that would be necessary. And then the last one would be something light, you know, like something that, shit, that's hard. Maybe I don't want like a horror book.
Right.
The Giving Tree.
There you go. Okay. Perfect. That's a
The
great
Giving
one.
Tree. That it's a short book, but it also touches my heart.
Yeah.
That book is beautiful. So, and it would just could be like a nightly read, like, oh, you know. So
That's brilliant. I love that. That's the perfect one, man. That is perfect, man. Name a horror movie that doesn't get the proper recognition that it deserves, in your opinion.
well, I mentioned both Anguish and Burial Ground, so let me think of another one.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna go for it because I just love Splatter Farm.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about Splatter. I watched that for the first time during the pandemic, and it was so inspiring to me that the Polonia brothers, these 19-year-old kids, made a movie on like a camcorder, but they had a farm, they had some special effects, they had a friend who helped them make it, and then they had an old woman in it, so it wasn't just children making a movie. It gave that a little extra push, and I just think it's really funny the way that the Polonia brothers' stilted acting is, but they're really good on screen. The story is bizarre. There's a great like torture scene in it. I don't know, man. Splatter Farm to me is just, and then the climax is hilarious. Splatter Farm would be something I would write. And now it's not going to be for everybody.
No, God, no, of course not.
Some people might watch this movie and be like, "What are you out of your mind?" But for the right people, it's gonna really hit the spot.
It's perfect for the Mutant family. If the Mutant family hasn't watched it, check out Splatter Farm.
Yeah.
100% agree.
I love it. I love Splatter Farm.
It's so good. Tell me about the filming process. Did you ever get nervous before getting up in front of the camera at the last drive-in and just going and did you take part in watching it live and did you like critique your own shit, or what was your process when it all came to the last drive-in?
Well, okay, so the first part, let's see. I would get nervous every once in a while when there was no like plan. Like sometimes this is not disparaging anybody, but there were certain times when we would have all the best intentions to get to something and have a lot of time to do it, but then for one reason or another we would run out of time, and it would be like, okay, now we're going to do the music video in 13 minutes, and it's like, so you're like on the spot to get it right as fast as possible. So those were nerve-wracking times, but I always did the best I could. And I feel like I succeeded. Like even sometimes the mistakes were good. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's better. Sometimes the mistakes are better than when you actually plan it, because you get a little bit something different than you thought. But then in terms of watching it, I always enjoyed watching it, other than the fact that every once in a while, like during the pandemic, I was a fat motherfucker, and I'm looking at myself sometimes just being like, oh wow, like certain episodes I'm just like, you were eating a lot of pizza that year. Like that is just and since then I've probably lost about 60 pounds. So that's been a very good it's been a long and arduous process, but it was at a certain time I would think I looked okay and whatever, and then see the last drive and be like, oh my God, what the hell am I doing with my life? So that was really more than anything. Other than that, I like it's fun because you know what? When you're in those situations and you're playing make-believe, it's the best. It's just so much fun. And even if, like I said, if you make a mistake, sometimes those mistakes can be incorporated in. So it's never like life or death. Yeah, you know, and I think some people treat it too precious.
Sure.
There's so much pressure on certain sets, and I think a lot of times you got to get back to the idea that we're just having fun. We're children playing house. We're children playing action. We're children playing Rambo. Whatever it is, I think it's sometimes the best sets I've been on have that childlike quality.
And it's you find, I mean, if you don't put too much, I mean, I get where you got to have certain bits of pressure on things, and this even goes for songwriting, where most people go, I the best song that I've created took me an hour or two, where it just felt like everything flowed, versus me just hammering away at this beat or hammering away at this melody or whatever, and it's driving me up the wall. I can see where you're going. If we just put all of this shit aside and just focus on having fun and getting as much as we can out of it, that's where the joy comes from.
Absolutely. And but you know, look, hey, I understand it's a business. I understand that there's people there like the ADs have a thankless role where they have to keep it moving. And you know, it's all very difficult, but I think sometimes with proper planning, you can have that playful nature on a set, and that's always been my favorite times.
Yeah, definitely. Tell me about the music creative process. Did was this kind of like a team meeting, or did they kind of give you creative control and going, you know what, the ball's in your court. You know, we're going to show this movie, come up with a song for this, that type. Tell me about that process.
It happened all those ways that you just mentioned.
Cool.
I would pitch sometimes. Sometimes there would be an assignment. Like for instance, the Lonely Red Christmas, the one that we did for one of the Christmas. I think it was Joe Bob's Red Christmas. That was something where they were like, we need a super super sad song, and that's not necessarily in my purview all the time, but in that regard, I had to really get to that place to write that song, and I think eventually I got there through the help of Austin Jennings, who he was like, "All right, let me start you out on some lyrics." So that helped inspire me to get like this super sad, just emotion going. Other times it was like, "Oh, you know, like Matt Mangiarides would be like, "Oh, I want to make a Fart the Clown segment on our Halloween show," and somebody was like, "Oh, it should be based on the Halloween 3 theme song. London Bridge. Oh yeah, okay, I can make a fart song about London Bridge." And that just was like a group think. Other times I pitched, you know, like I'll take full credit for the Clint Howard thing. I said Clint Howard's coming on, and let's just write a thank you song to him. And now, unfortunately, I guess Clint Howard thought we were making fun of him, but I'm sorry. Anyone in the world, including Mr. Howard himself, who thinks that that song is a disparaging song, is so wrong, because I wrote the damn thing and I was celebrating that man. I went to the theater to see Parenthood, and he was my favorite part in that movie when he's like, he has no business being out there. You know, I was celebrating that man, and I know everybody else on the last drive-in was celebrating him. And if he didn't like it, I'm sorry. Like, sorry that you didn't like it, but you cannot say we were making fun of you. That is just a lie or a misrepresentation.
And even just the whole show based around it was a tribute to just how great. And I think everybody just showed unconditional love for the man the entire. Yeah. Even if a song adds a bit of quirk to it, it's like, no, we love everything that you're doing. You know,
yes. I mean, I hired fucking gospel singers, for Christ's sake. You think I'm going to go out of my way to hire gospel singers to make fun of somebody? That's crazy. That's crazy. And even those women, the gospel singers, they were friends is what they're called. Even they were like, "Oh my God, we're singing to Clint Howard. I remember him for," and they would like list all the things. So they were super stoked to be singing to him. So whatever. But to finish your question, yeah, it was just like sometimes it would be like, "Oh, we're gonna cover the Sharknado theme," or you know, so many different ways it all came together.
That's amazing. And after after putting everything out, tell me about just like your Bandcamp streams. What was probably the most like successful one where, you know, people are just continuously downloading or streaming? Which one is probably the one that goes, holy shit, people really like this one?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm super pissed about this. Is the by far the most streamed track that I had on especially Spotify was my collaboration with Mr. Levi White. It was the acoustic version of Joe Bob is Back in Town. Okay. We had like close to 200,000 streams on Spotify. Everything else was like 30,000 or less. That by far traveled the most. One day I got a fucking message from Spotify and they said, we believe that these streams have been gotten by ill means on an illegal playlist or something of that nature, so we're taking it down. And I said, there's no way. I searched, because you could search what playlist the songs are on. It wasn't on a playlist except like one horror playlist or whatever. And there was no way to fight that. There was no way to contact them. I wrote to Spotify. Nobody would listen, and finally it got taken down. So I think that was super unfair because it was by far the most liked song, well, the most streamed song from that show. And it's up there again as part of like the volume 1 soundtrack, whatever. So it's up there to be streamed, but that was so fucking horrible to be accused of. I don't know. What am I gonna do? Pretend?
It's brutal when you're putting music out on streaming service, because I've done this where I've put, I did like a set list where I'd practice and I streamed it or whatever. They took everything down, being like, this music doesn't belong to you. I was like, this is all my music. What are you talking?
Yeah.
Like, a fight. And I didn't get that video back for an entire, like, I think over a year. Like, I'm fighting it, going, dude, this is my music. Like, what do I need to do? And they will not like, it just falls into like this spam folder until they decide to get to it. It is nerve-wracking.
No, it's terrible. That happened to me 2 or 3 times on other services. I wrote this song called Merry Christmas, Have a Beer. Yeah. And it got, this Facebook was like, this is we're going to take down your site or whatever. Like, that's my song. Who can I speak to tell you that this is mine? So it sucks. But then the one that I get the most compliments and the fans shout out the most to me when they meet me is the Spookies rap.
Yes.
People love the Spookies rap, and I was super stoked about that.
That's wild. What, if you were asked to do anything, what would you want to do? TV, another film? What would be your like big like dream gig?
Oh, dream gig?
Yeah.
You want to know my honest answer here? It's to make a shitload of money in either like crypto or the lottery or something and not have to work again, other than what I want to do. That's my honest answer. It's to not have somebody breathing down my neck to say, we need this, that, the other thing, not to have the pressure of it needs to perform or not, just to be purely financially stable and make art and put it out. And if people like it, great. If they don't, great. That's my dream. That is my absolute dream. And I know it's probably the dream of many people, but
we were talking about that because the lottery just happened and someone won in Missouri. I think another one won in California or Texas or something like that. And it was like in the billions. It was like crazy. And we would just sit here and just go, you know what we could do? And again, it was one of mine where I can just go, even if I'm working, I would hold on to that money and just, have fun. Just go crazy, buy instruments, buy crazy synthesizers, just make the most outlandish shit and just have fun with it. Have creative freedom.
That's it. Like the creative freedom, and not to, just to have I'm not even asking for mansions and this and that. No, just enough to have a normal life, and then to be able to do what I want in terms of art. That's the dream.
Yep.
That's the dream. And because sometimes this isn't directed at anybody like The Last Drive-In or a Troma or anything, but just in general, a lot of times people like to change things just so that they can have said that they had a hand in it. There's a lot of people who want to, like, if something's good, they want to then change it so that they could say, oh, I made that edit or whatever. I think a lot of that doesn't need to happen. That's why I would love to just be able to make shit and put it out as it is. No notes, motherfuckers.
Right, no notes. let me alone. Let me be. Oh my gosh, that's so brilliant. Tell me about. I'm really into the geeky part of music. Tell me about your gear setup, kind of your studio space. What do you use? What do you use? A digital audio workshop? Do you have like a MIDI controller? Tell me about your setup.
Yeah, so over the years, I just built up this home recording thing just through osmosis almost. Every once in a while, I'll be like, oh, I need this thing, I need that thing. And it would just slowly build to now that I have a pretty decent setup at home. So obviously, I have a laptop. This is my space now because I lost my
It looks great.
apartment in a fire.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're talking about that. Oh, I'm so
Yeah, so
sorry
now
about
I'm in like a basement area where it's great. It's honestly almost better than what I
that. It
had
looks
to
like a
begin with.
comfortable space for sure.
It's awesome. I put all this stuff up, the
Beautiful. It
lights.
looks great. It looks great. I'm super jealous. But yeah,
It,
go ahead.
it gives me a great atmosphere. So obviously the laptop, like I said, I'm still working in GarageBand.
Okay.
I haven't graduated to Logic only because I think that GarageBand gets it done. And it has great sounds. I have all of my plugins. I got the Juno, whatever, synths, and all of it's just in there. So I don't want to have to learn Logic. I mean, I'm sure Logic is pretty similar, whatever. But then I have this Focusrite, which is actually what's plugged into this mic. It's like a direct input box. Then I have two really nice speakers that are, I could look up the names of them because I can't see them right now.
I was gonna say you don't have to if you don't want to.
Yeah.
I just
No,
love
they're just like good home studio speakers that are better than just what's on your laptop, and also decent headphones. These aren't my best headphones because I usually do when I do a mix and a master, I do it both on the speakers and in the headphones because sometimes it's wildly
I'm
different.
the same way. Yep.
As you probably know. And sometimes I'll even then plug it into my TV just to double check in case there's like a bass issue or something. Then after that, I have a couple of just like regular old guitars. One of those Squire like starter guitars. Still sounds good.
Sounds
A
great.
couple of acoustic guitars, and then one of those MIDI synth things that I can play the synth. And then 3 or 4 mics that one's like a shotgun mic, one's the thing that they have for that Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson used on Thriller, the SMB whatever 71342. I'm not good with technical names.
It's okay. No, you're good. You're good. You're good. You're good.
So that's it. Like, I mean, I know that sounds like a lot, but those are things that I accrued over many years. And now it's just a decent setup. I mean, yesterday I was doing demos with my cousin for this project we're doing called Spaceship.
What's that about?
Well, he's had this in his head for many years, my cousin. He's like a really creative guy, but he works in advertising.
Oh, okay.
So I said, I'll work on Spaceship with you, man. Let's do Spaceship, dude. And it's like like doom metal sludge, and it's got a concept record. So we did a couple demos. He's like, holy shit, like this is a great setup. You got a lot of good stuff. It sounds good right at the demo. I was like, this is years of just gathering this stuff. So, yeah.
I'm so glad. I mean, is there anything else you're working on besides, your movie coming out? Don't finger bang a Wendinga. And just like the pop. Tell me, I don't want to steer it off you. How's Yuki doing?
Oh no, Yuki's great. I mean, like Yuki is like a cat. He's always gonna land on his feet, no matter what the hell happens. That dude has had.
I love that guy. He's so great.
Absolutely. I mean, he's great. He is so amazing. He's just an amazing person and so interesting and has a brain like nobody I've ever met. Really. Yeah. And so we just been doing this podcast for the past 3 years where we just talk about everything. That's why we call it the buffet. It's a buffet of topics. So Yuki'll come in and he'll be like, I want to talk about the Civil War. Okay, we'll get to the Civil War episode. Or then, the listeners will be like, you guys, I want to hear about Halloween, and we'll plan a Halloween episode. Or I'll say, Yuki, I really want to know your struggles with immigration and how that was, because he's an immigrant, So it'll just come up, and some of them will be funny. Some of them will be real. We're not in the business to sit there and be like, every single thing that we do or say has to be funny. Sure. Sometimes we get really not only dark, but also existential, philosophical, psychological. It's almost like picking Yuki's brain apart, but then sometimes it becomes like therapy for me. It's a really great platform. So that's sort of how like Yuki and I have stayed in each other's circles, is just doing this podcast and kind of like picking each other's brains.
Therapy, yeah. And that's the thing is like podcast, and I really encourage everybody, check out your podcast. It's amazing. It's got so many great topics, and you guys go from everywhere from one thing to the next, and it's so great. And you really just have it all on your YouTube. Do you got it on basically all streaming platforms as
So
well?
at Bad Techno is like where I'm at across all platforms. And everywhere there's a link tree, you can find Yuki and John's Patreon buffet, Yuki and John's podcast buffet. We're even doing the Yuki and John's interview buffet for the Kings of Horror coming up. I've been collecting interviews with a bunch of people based on a questionnaire that Yuki came up with called Spooky Yuki Scary Questionnaire. And if you want to send in your answers, you can find it. Go to the link tree. It's all in there at Bad Techno across all platforms.
John, thank you so much, man. I appreciate your time, dude. You have been amazing. Like, I'm so glad everything worked out to get you on. You're one of my favorites. Again, everything you've done from music to Troma to the last drive-in brought me so much joy. Thank you so much for your time, John.
And thank you for having me. I've really had a great time talking to you, and you really hit me with that answer about the desert island. I never would have expected books would be my answer, but I really thought it out, and that would. Thank you for
That's
that.
probably one of those ones that just like everybody kind of has their own, but you really just went down and went, let me think about that. A lot of people, they just kind of go da 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 da. Like, no, you're just like, books. Here we go. Here's the list. I love it. It was
you got to dissect it, Mr. Spock. You said about logic. That's all it's about. Logic.
Exactly. Thank you, John. I appreciate your time, buddy.
All right. Talk to you soon.